In Ukraine, a Russian bomb landed near a block of apartments in the southern city of Kherson overnight. Officials say it wounded a child. This is video released by the regional government. It says the attack damaged apartments and nearby roads. The video and its date have not been verified. Officials from a nearby region say another Russian missile also killed a teenager. Since February's capture of the strategic town of Avdiivka, Russian troops have continued their advance westward. They're now attacking 5 key areas along the front line. For more on these advances, we're joined by Andrew Rasiulis. He's a retired Department of National Defence official and a fellow at the Canadian Global Affairs Institute. Thanks for joining us today.
Morning, Linda.
So, President Zelensky warned Russia would start a new offensive in the spring. We've certainly seen a number of drone strikes, a number of deaths over recent days. Has this already started?
Oh, yes. It's a question of degree and tempo. The Russians are now, as you've just described, in fact, are on what we would call a tactical level offensive operation. They are continually moving westward along a 1,000-kilometer front, depending on where you're looking. Now, what the speculation is that in the spring, once the weather clears and the ground hardens, the Russians are preparing a larger scale attack, like an operational level, to break through the Ukrainian line at some point. And again, speculation. It could be in the northern part of the front, around the city of Kharkiv. The Russians took Kharkiv in 2022 and were pushed back. It's in their strategic plan to try and retake it. And that may be, in fact, what they're going for, but there's no way of knowing that for sure, of course.
Is there something that Ukraine should be doing or thinking about right now in order to hold its ground that they haven't already tried?
Ukraine has not put in very many fortifications, defensive fortifications, to the extent that Russia did in late 2022 after they were pushed back through large parts of Ukraine in that initial assault. And that's what saved the Russian position last summer when the Ukrainians tried to break the Ukrainian-Russian defense lines and failed. Now, the Ukrainians have been really focused on their objective to push all Russian forces out of Ukraine, including Crimea, to the 1991 borders, and they have put their emphasis on the attack, not so much on the defense. But now they really have to focus on the defense, since the attack is not a viable military option for the Ukrainians at present.
Yeah, and part of that has to do with this ammunition shortage that we've been talking about over recent weeks. Can you foresee Russia being able to make even more advances because of that?
It's certainly possible. The shortages for Ukraine are in terms of artillery, as you described, the shells, but also equipment and people power, soldiers. The Ukrainians are still struggling to replace their losses, and they are still not clear through with their mobilization plan through the RADA. So they are struggling along that entire equation. The Russians have those factors balanced on their side, puts the Russia at the advantage, and they are pressing that advantage.
Now, we've heard from Turkey as well, offering to host a summit, talks between Ukraine and Russia to end the war during a meeting between Zelensky and Erdogan yesterday. Can Turkey make any progress here for the state of this war?
Well, the Turks have been trying to do this right from the beginning of the war. The last peace talks actually occurred in Istanbul in March of 2022. A month after the war had started. And it came close to a settlement, but there's a complicated story behind that. The point is they're trying again, and that's good, because at some point, this war was going to have to end through some form of a negotiated settlement, since it's unlikely that either side will be able to unconditionally defeat the other side. And that only means some kind of a negotiation where the armies stop and the politicians and the diplomats take over and say, okay, this is it. Nobody likes it, but this is it.
Andrew Rasiulis, thanks very much for joining us today. We appreciate your thoughts on this.
You're very welcome, Linda.